Um, that music was KC Beaton with Jamoris Rankin on the piano at a house party, and those were dancing feet that you heard. It was a square set, and it's a lively track. So welcome once again. Thank you so much for deciding to spend your night with us here. It's a cold and kind of stormy one, but here we are, all safe and sound, I hope. So as mentioned, my name is Margie. I'll be hosting the evening with you all tonight, and coming to you, of course, from the sacred land of the Mi'kmaq in Mi'kma'ki, the sacred land, the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq. And I am in Badek in Unama'ki, here in Mi'kma'ki. A lot of us coming from parts of Turtle Island, I think, and we're thrilled to have you all tonight and kick into another great discussion. I'll give a little bit of an overview and then we'll roll right into things. But as I speak, and those that know already, I see some names change. But if you're interested, we're going to jump into a breakout rooms really soon here. And if you're interested in joining one all in Gaelic, with Gaelic speakers that are up for speaking to this with all the fluency they can, feel free to put a G in your name. So you would rename, you might see others doing that. Put a G there and our tech team will put you in with other Gaelic speakers. That's the plan. We have 2 opportunities to do that tonight. So if you missed this first one, we'll get you yet. So also, if you're a first timer here, or if not, but I'll give a little general overview of this project, which is Air Haley. And the purpose, we're in season 3 of this. This is our 3rd year doing it. And it's to create a welcoming and convivial space where we share moments and stories that speak to our connection with Gaelic language, culture, and community. Through telling and listening to stories, we shed light and invite the stories we want more of in our lives and our communities. So that's important to know as we head into this, because we're going to hear from 2 great guests. I'm really excited. But before that and after that, we want to hear from you all in these small breakout rooms. So it's a chance to hear and be heard. And that's a big part of this process. So once again, a reminder to put G's at the start of your name to get into Gaelic breakout rooms, which is coming up very soon. But I'll also give you a little overview of what tonight's topic is. So you might have seen it already advertised. We're talking about community tonight. We've talked about community over the years. It comes up a lot in discussion. This one will be a focal point. And we want to look at the beauty of community, what it holds for us, the vitality it can bring to us, what's at the heart of a Gaelic community. Are we part of a Gaelic community? How do we join a Gaelic community? What are we perhaps losing in Gaelic communities? We're going to try and surface a lot of questions tonight. And also, how do we contribute? How do we start? How do we be part of it? And all the good that comes out of community. So that's the plan. I'm a little over time already. Sorry about that. But I will check with our tech expert. I think it's Kieran. How are those rooms looking, Kieran?
They're just about ready. I think someone just came in, so I just need to assign 1 or 2 more people, but we'll be ready in just a sec.
Excellent. Keeners. Okay, so that's a good little preview. So just to have your chat box open, keep an eye on the chat. We like to be lively in the chat as well. So if anything strikes you, if anything resonates with you, feel free to comment. A discussion usually happens throughout the whole night there. We also take stock of that harvest after the fact, and you can go back and read the harvest, we call it. We'll spend some time on that, but we're also going to pop in the topic for discussion for our first breakout room, which is coming right up. So we want you to introduce yourselves, of course, where you're calling from, And we want to know, what is at the heart of a Gaelic community? What do you think makes a community a Gaeltach, Gaelic-like? Okay, so we're gonna pop that in the chat. There it is. Great. And so whenever Kieran's ready, we're gonna head off into our rooms and get ready for a great night. Oh, how much time? Thanks for a great question. So this one is, we're gonna stick with I think groups of three with about 5 minutes each. We're gonna give you a little heads up. You'll see that, and then we'll be whooshed back in here. So when ready, we're good to go. Fella here's name is Adam. And I'll give you a little intro on Adam as we settle back in. But what we're gonna do is chat with Adam, and then we have a second guest coming up in a little bit. So settle back. Hope you have a cup of tea, and also reminder to keep that chat window going. Keep it active. Okay. So this is my friend Adam Dahmer, and he's coming to us from Calgary. Originally from Kentucky. You might have read about him in the bio this past week. I actually just kind of briefly met you, Adam, last year through this Gaelic Narrative Project. So I'm thrilled that he's joining us tonight. He holds a PhD in Celtic Studies from the University of Edinburgh. And so he's a speaker, of course, an instructor, an enthusiast, and he might even touch on some of his initiatives to bring a sense of community, perhaps, and a reinvigoration of the Gaelic roots that once would have been in Kentucky. So all the way from Calgary. So he's got a lot on his plate, and he's going to talk to us tonight about community. So thank you for joining us, Adam.
Many thanks, Margie. I'm very happy to be here, and happy to answer any questions you may have.
Well, I gave you a little. We had a little pre-chat about tonight, and I tell you, you're a fascinating fella. We could easily spend a whole evening just with yourself, so Kentucky, an interesting story. If you don't mind, would you tell us a bit about how Gaelic came to be important to you?
How it came to be important to me? Well, it's a long story, really. I got interested in Gaelic as a language through a long-standing interest in Celtic studies, and got interested in Celtic studies through all the bits of Celtic studies that modern Celtic scholars are most ashamed of, all the stuff that came out of the Celtic revival, all of the mad speculation about cat-headed gods and what have you, and the stuff inspiring to neo-pagans. Catchavel, Kentucky. Sound ounce the starch in the high. It's in the United States that it is. Candachi Gaelic. So you can call it, if you want, in Gaelic, Candachi, Home's End, which is very poetic, but it's just a transliteration of the name. But I'd been there for quite a long time, and it was really after a failed attempt at law school that I got into Gaelic. I had studied law at the University of Louisville's Brandeis Law School, came in with great aspirations after having done an undergraduate course in political science, and did what you'd expect to do with an undergraduate course in political science, which was law, and found after less than 6 months that I despised it, and dropped out, and thought that if I could study anything, why not Celtic studies? Because suddenly, in the face of failure, the world was wide open to me. There was nowhere to go but up, and nothing constraining my choices. So off I went to Edinburgh, was accepted, which at the time was a surprise to me because I had no formal academic training in the subject, but went off to a master's degree in Celtic studies, and as part of that started learning Gaelic, and found that it was the key that unlocked every door. It was really the focus of Gaelic studies was the Gaelic language, and to me at least, the most important part of it. and I dedicated my PhD to it. So the PhD, it was in how Gaelic speakers use the Gaelic language after graduating Gaelic programs at Scottish universities. The actual title has fewer mentions of the word Gaelic. It's more concise, but that's the idea. And now here you have me, and I'm trying to get Gaelic going in North America in various places, in Kentucky, where I'm from, where I'm back in the summers, and in Calgary, where I live the rest of the year.
Fantastic. Wow, it's really become a focal point in your life. Who would have thought? So I'm curious, we were just asking each other in our breakout rooms, you know, what maybe makes up a Gaelic community. What do you think, how do you define a Gaelic community, perhaps? And you know, what's at the heart of it? And how do we become one, a member of such a community?
Well, I think that, somewhat self-explanatorily, two very important aspects are at the very least community and Gaelic. Yeah, so you can't have a Gaelic community without those at the very least. So get people speaking Gaelic, get people interacting with each other while speaking Gaelic. And I think that if you had to do another letter in there, we could make it the three C's. So we've got Koyershnach, we've got community, we've got canon, which is language. And then I'd say the other thing is kultur. So, traditionally Gaelic things like, singing and dancing in Gaelic styles, learning about Gaelic history. I think that if you've got people who combine all of these elements, so people that are speaking in Gaelic about Gaelic things, then you've got a Gaelic community and trying their best to embody sort of a Gaelic way of life, however you'd like to define that.
Interesting. Um, so I guess we're interested in perhaps inspiring folks to be stewards of community here, creating it, developing it where they are. But to do that, you have to feel connected to it. So I'm curious, and one of the things we like to do at the Narrative Project is to tell stories, to hear our stories, and be as descriptive as you like to really set the scene. So I'm curious about a time that you felt really connected to a Gaelic community. How did it feel? Who was there? And then from that, how do we create that for others, that they feel that bond as you did?
I think the first time that I felt really connected to Gaelic and to other people through Gaelic was when I was in Flottagerry in the Isle of Skye. We'd gone up there with the Common Celtach, which in English is the Highland Society, although it ought by rights to be the Celtic Society if they call themselves the Common Celtach. It's funny, if you look through history, the name and the translation of the name has changed quite a bit. And right now it's fossilized at a stage where the English didn't catch up to what the Gaelic was. But Koyu is Koye, either the Common Celtach or the Highland Society. There we were up in Flottagerry, and we were all staying in a hostel by night, and by day we'd go out with local Gaelic speakers, and they would do their best to mentor us. Although I think a lot of us, the proficiency of the language wasn't at such a stage where we could learn very much from them, but we were very happy to be in their company. And I imagine that they were happy to be in ours. I flatter myself that they were. But at night, we would sing together in Gaelic. And we would sing songs that they had taught us during the day. So if our language abilities were low, we could at least, if we repeated it enough, learn song lyrics. And they cottoned on to that pretty quickly and started teaching us lots and lots of songs, these Gaels in Flottagerry. And what I first, remember when I suppose when I recount this episode, it's a particular moment. It's all of us together in the hall of this hostel and people from all over the world. You had people from France and Germany and North America and South America and parts of Asia, and of course Scotland. And all of us were there in this hostel. And I remember us joined in for the chorus of Morakatun Vekan. And, I'll give you a little bit of that. Most of you all will know it, I imagine. O vansna o vanno. O vansna hi horo. O vansna o vanno. Smil shalom movorak. There we go. So just all of us singing the chorus. Some of us, that was all we could manage of the song. But, by God, we had that part and we were belting it. And I thought to myself, well, this is just wonderful. And, what a great feeling that everyone is connected in this way and on the same page at what seemed like a superficial level, but what felt really like quite a deep one. And this very old song that all of us were now learning. And I felt a little bit melancholy towards the end of it because I was thinking to myself, visa prospects are unlikely for myself in this country. Eventually, I'm probably going to have to go back to North America. And will I ever have this moment again? And years later, just a little while ago, I was back in Kentucky. It would have been October of 2021. And I had set up a Gaelic workshop there, a Gaelic song workshop at a pub in Louisville. Well, call it what you will. It's not what some people would think of as a pub, but it calls itself a pub and will let itself identify as it wants. But it was there and we were all singing that same song, Morakatun Veken. And when we got to the end of the chorus, I thought back to that time earlier in Scotland when I had been singing this song in a similar situation, people of all nationalities and all ages, and lamenting that it would probably never happen again outside of Scotland. But here it was, and it was me that had done it. And that was a very satisfying moment. And I deeply appreciate that. I want everybody to have a moment like that, where they found something they enjoy and are able to recreate it for other people.
That's it, Adam. You're right on. And I find it really interesting too, to hear your perspective on an online community. This is very much a present place that people are finding their only connection with the language and learning. How are we able to connect in that way to feel those intrinsic things? Because is this the future? If are we able to have sustainable sources of community in an online format?
I would be quite sad if it were the future, if it were the only aspect of the future. I'll share a little bit of Schadenfreude with you. I love it when tech billionaires fail. And one of the things that I saw most recently, have you heard about Mark Zuckerberg and the metaverse? How excited he was about the metaverse. And now the metaverse is imploding and quite possibly Facebook, now Meta, with it. And I think it serves him right. I don't think that people should be made to exist only online. I think that that would be a ridiculous way for physical beings to exist and to communicate with each other if that's the only way. Now, on the other hand, I love online communities, but I think that their real power is in augmenting existing communities or providing the impetus for in-person communities to be formed. I hope that it's a means for us to inspire ourselves and each other to go out and find people physically in our communities that we can form community with. Yeah, so that's my hope for online community. I think that it's a wonderful stopgap measure. I think that it's a wonderful thing to have as last resort. If it's keeping many a Gaelic speaker in touch with other Gaelic speakers. But I think that it shouldn't be the only thing. I think that you can't live authentically exclusively through the medium of screens. And I think that it's only fools who would disagree with that. Yeah.
So any tips on how to start a community perhaps where we are in these ways? Start a Gaelic community at that?
Absolutely. So one of the things I joke with people is infiltration. So there are a great many Gaelic societies or Gaelic related societies or Highland societies or Scottish societies scattered throughout North America. And you'll notice that most of them, however Gaelic their names are, have very little Gaelic. And this is a thing that I think all of us could attempt to change. So we enter these societies and we nudge them in the direction of Gaelic. And I'm not saying full on sort of nefarious infiltration. I don't suggest that we take them over from within. We're not sleeper cells, we're not Trotskyites. But I think that it's a good thing to go in, and yeah, clan societies too. And coming from the South, you have to be careful about the spelling of clan. There are some clan societies that it would be no good to infiltrate on behalf of Gaelic. Some of them you'd need to keep well away from. But yeah, the Scottish clan organizations, a lot of them, whether they realize it or not, are quite hungry for Gaelic in their lives. A lot of them have formed because of Americans seeking authenticity that they feel is lacking. Americans in the ampler sense, Canadians or people of the United States. Well, this is a thing that I've thought quite a lot about, and maybe it's something that you're going to ask me about later on. But yeah, a lot of people are recoiling from modernity these days. You have the aforementioned tech billionaires who are striving to accelerate capitalism and individualism and what have you. But a lot of us are sort of overwhelmed by it and seeing the directions that it's taken our communities and the planet, and are a little bit hesitant. We've also entered what a lot of people are calling the age of identity. There's sort of an ethnic renaissance that's taking place all over the world. People are asking, who are their people? What is their culture? And, this has wonderful aspects to it in that a lot of indigenous people are feeling empowered. A lot of racial and ethnic minorities are feeling empowered. But the people that don't have a ready answer to that question, a lot of them are going in weird directions. You've got the right wing that's resurgent, arguably more than at any time since before the Second World War. And what I think a large part of that is it's white people, #TM, looking at themselves and being like, what is my culture? Who am I? Who are my people? Because whiteness in and of itself is not a very fulfilling identity. It was only created as of the late 1600s, and it always had a master mentality. It was only created to elevate some people over other people, and it was very much divorced from what we would call indigeneity. It shuns having an authentic relationship with the place that you're from. It tries to mediate most relationships through power hierarchies and the capitalist economy. And I think a lot of people who find themselves saddled with that identity are really at a loss now that we're trying to embrace indigeneity, that they feel cut off from it and they're grasping at straws. And I think that with Gaelic, we can give a lot of them something that's very real. And I'm not saying that Gaelic is only for white people. That would be a terrifying way to interpret this. Don't take it that way. I believe that everyone who wants to be should be involved in Gaelic. But I think that a lot of the people who are in societies like Scottish societies and, clan societies, I think that they're looking for this authentic connection to a culture. Yeah. And I think that Gaelic can provide that.
I think so too. Adam, I wish we had more time. I'm going to have to move along here, but I'm wondering if you might even type into the chat for anyone that's watching that might be interested in knowing more about your work or ways to connect with you and your online spaces. Feel free to share. And
oh, absolutely. I'll say real quickly, just Splank. Look for Splank. So flash, bang, Splank. SPLANG, exclamation point. You can find us on Facebook that way, Splank. That's myself and my wife's organization. Donya Baird is my wife, Dr. Donya Baird. Sadly, she couldn't be here, but she's at least as wise in these ways as I am. So look up Splank, and from there you can find us. We've got a website, we've got a Facebook group, and I'll post those in the chat.
Excellent, excellent. Well, thank you so much, Adam. You're so wise and have so much to contribute. So I'm glad that you're part of the Gaelic community. I'm
happy I fooled you, Margie. But I'm glad you. Thank you.
Definitely. Just before we get to KC, who's just joined the chat here, I wonder if our tech experts can share a little video that we thought would be fitting as we enter into the next chat. If that's easy to do. If not, let me know. Is that possible? Well, I'm not hearing yay or nay. Oh, there you are. We're going to watch a quick little video from 1941 of a milling frolic, or walking the cloth. Thank you so much, Susan, for sharing that. Seems like a great time that they were having there. And that was a suggestion of KC's to share that. This is KC Beaton. We're going to hear from her in just a quick second. I'll quickly introduce you to her. KC comes from Mabou. Are you coming from Mabou there tonight?
Sure am.
Sure am, downtown.
Right in the inner city.
You're in the heart of it all. Yes. And KC is such a valued member of Mabou. I come from Mabou myself. So I've gotten to know her pretty well over the years. A beautiful singer and a speaker, and someone that really values community and can speak to what it's like to live in a Gaeltacht. Mabou is known for having such rich roots in Gaelic and heritage. So we're going to, if you wouldn't mind, KC, you've written about it on social media over the years, and one was such a striking prose that you wrote about your love of community and was inspired by a certain event. Would you give that to us?
Sure. It's something I wrote, I don't even know how many years ago, but anyway, these were just thoughts after I had been at a funeral of a neighbor. So last summer, I attended a funeral of a neighbor. My home is in a community on the west coast of Cape Breton Island. It's sparsely populated and extremely rural. Each loss of a neighbor and friend is felt deeply by everyone. This feeling of connection is primarily why I chose and continue to choose to live a rural existence. As I glanced around the congregation, looking at a large gathering of the man's family, friends, co-workers, cohorts, and classmates, in my mind's eye, I saw a swath of fabric, rich, warm, thick, and strong. And it struck me that the process of a collection of people forming a community is not unlike weaving and the creation of fabric. In weaving, it all begins with the warp, laying out of the threads or strands of yarn in a loom in a lengthwise configuration. It's an act of development by intricacy. Each piece plays a role in the pattern that will form the finished product. The weft or woof is made up of the transecting threads or strands that are drawn over and under the warp, resulting in a piece of cloth. Weaker strands aren't always discarded, but they may require a supportive knot. In the tradition of the Gaels, a distinct cultural group of people from the Highland region and islands of northern Scotland, fabric off the loom is subjected to a process of wuach, or walking or milling the cloth, so that the fibers are thicker and stronger, offering greater warmth and durability. Milling involves dipping the cloth in liquid. Today it's water. The ancient practice involved using stale urine and pounding it on a long wooden table until the fibers thicken and bind together more closely. It is a brutal transaction to ensure a bit of warmth. And in life, there are so many difficult occasions that leave us feeling pounded by fate. These are the times when communities grow thicker as connections between us deepen, binding us all in support of warmth, walking together through it all. Community can grow anywhere, in cities or towns, counties or countries, in an office or on an assembly line, real or virtual worlds, across a street or in a hayfield. They form every day around the world through shared values, experiences, or activities. Ties become bound by common ideas or space or time, and sometimes purely by happenstance. The most important requirements are that we keep open hearts and minds, celebrate how we are alike, and honor and respect the ways that we are different.
KC, you have such a way with words. Thank you for sharing that. It's beautiful and paints such a beautiful picture. I wonder, if you want to speak to the event that spurred that on. And then, of course, the elements of the culture that you see connecting in that
Yeah.
way.
Well, as I said, it was just I was invited to sing for the man's funeral, and it really was that literal. I was watching. If anybody here watching has ever been in the church in Mabou, you may remember that the church has been decorated off and on for many years with cloth, with tartan of the settling families of the community, and it was as if I was watching all of these people come together, and it was hard. It was a tough one. He'd been sick for a long time. He had family, and just it was rough. And it was literally like watching those tartan blankets come off the walls and surround the people that were there to comfort everybody that day. And that's what started the thought process. And in terms of, I guess, how a community, or particularly a Gaelic community, is woven together, I guess I would consider language being the warp. So the warp are the threads that start the whole thing going, and they're the foundation, if you will, of the fabric. And so they're what's going to, in part, make sure that the finished product is secure. And then you can move on and you establish, and it's also the hardest thing to put together. Your pattern is all in the warp. And that's the most intricate part of the project. So then you do the transacting part, which is the woof. And you can use, that's where you bring your pattern together. That's where you bang the cloth on the loom and start shaping your fabric. And to me, the woof would be the different traditions, songs, stories, dancing, all of those things that have piqued people's curiosity, genealogy, looking for your roots, understanding your heritage, and so on and so forth. Those are all the things that draw you in, that weave us all together. But in the end, it's like anything. If you see say, for example, a scarf, a woven scarf, that there might be something that draws you to it, something shiny, a pretty color or whatever, and you're going to examine it. But when you examine it, you're still going to come back to those main threads, the threads in the warp, and you're going to see that. And so that's, I guess, if I were to use that kind of that would be what I would say would be how that would be it.
Right. Beautiful. I really hadn't thought of it in that way before. Hearing about your description, it's bang on. So as mentioned, you live in Mabou, and for the better part of your life you have. I'm wondering, the Gaelic lens that you see the world, being so involved in it for so much of your life, has it shaped your lens on the world? How does it feel like it's just intrinsically part of you, I suppose?
I think it is. Um, I was in a discussion in a great breakout room last week and about how Gaelic does form your view, and I think somebody expressed that it you think about things. How was it put? You think about, you have thoughts that are individual. You think as an individual about things, about topics, but you tend to think about people as a we, as a collective. And I think that's probably part of it. Yeah, that's probably about the best way I can answer that.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Cool. Just like I asked Adam,
Mhm,
we're talking about, of course, our own bonds with community. Is
mhm.
there a moment that you can tell us about that stands out? Doesn't have to be the number one, but one that comes to mind
Oh
when you
gosh.
felt that special bond yourself with a Gaelic community.
Yeah. I can think of, I'm going to say there are three that would say stand out. But I'll do it, and I'll do this quickly. One was a number of years ago during a Celtic Colours concert, and it was Gaelic singers that were in Cape Breton and in Scotland, and they were sharing the tradition, but they were also sharing how songs differ over the years from with passing on through countries and immigration and all of that sort of thing. And it was a sold out concert, so there were probably 500 people in the room. And at the end of the concert, the singers together on stage sang "Is Jenna Flew, or Jenna Flew is Toka Found." There were 500 odd people in the auditorium, and everybody was singing it. And I was in the back. I was volunteering during the concert, and I had goosebumps and tears. It was amazing. And then again, this fall, I sang throughout my teenage years in a group called Gaelic Mabou. And this year again, during Celtic Colours, they did a tribute concert to the woman who was the director of that group, so Maureen Mackenzie. And I've learned songs from singers in different places, but Maureen was our primary teacher of Gaelic songs, and there were 12 of us in the group. We've all grown on, we're not teenagers anymore. And 6 of us came together to sing for this concert. And it was really neat to see us. We came together, we had a few practices, and we had lots of recollections, but what we all realized was that as teenagers in the 80s, singing, teenage girls singing Gaelic songs wasn't quite as the thing that it would be today. But we knew it was different, but we never felt weird about it, I guess is the best way to explain it. And that we all gave credit to that, gave credit to Maureen for that. And then as we performed, just how it was effortless, because she had taught us so well that even 30 years or more since some of us had sung the songs, and they were right there. And there wasn't really a lot of rehearsal required. And that always stands out as pretty cool.
Oh, beautiful,
Mhm,
beautiful.
mhm.
Well, I wish we could spend all night with you too, Casey. I see that we are getting close, but
Sure.
I would be remiss not to talk about, not for us to discuss
Mhm,
loss and
mhm,
change and how
mhm.
hard change is. And I wonder if you have thoughts about what you're feeling and seeing and changing of changes in the community, what we could be losing or is already lost. Um,
Mhm.
and if you have any thoughts on how we can revive beautiful aspects of a community.
I I thought that this would be easier to, a couple of days ago, I thought this was going to be easier to answer than it was, because there have been so many. I'll just throw it out. 25 years ago, I remember sitting in a meeting with a government minister who actually openly scoffed at us for wanting to do anything about Gaelic development in Nova Scotia. Now there's a government minister for Gaelic affairs. So there's that. That's a positive change. There was a time I remember my grandfather wondering why I would ever want to learn Gaelic in school. And now there is a school, primary language school for Gaelic. So those are positive things. Of course, we have lost tradition bearers. And like, as I said, in the story, we all feel that differently. And I think if I would challenge anybody who's learning, learn about those people, learn about what was important to them. Specifically in the Mabou area, of course, is known a lot for fiddling and dancing. Go back and look at tapes, say for example, find videos or find tapes of somebody like a Kenneth Joseph MacDonald, a Willie Kennedy, a Father Angus, and learn about their style of playing. Go looking for older videos of perhaps like the dance tape you played at the beginning, in a square set, and listen particularly to the sound on the floor. I can remember a time, I can remember listening to dance tapes where you could hear the fiddler change because you could hear who was on the floor and you knew who was dancing. Things like that. And those, I guess, and I love to see the progress that's being made. I love to see how it's grown. Those are small little those are nuances, I guess you would call them. And I think those are things that they should be looked at.
I agree. Before we let you go, we have to return to, I guess, the title of this night is Why Community Matters. Casey, why does this community matter to you? Why do you choose it?
Why do I choose it? Because I have seen, as I said, when I was a teenager, Gaelic was not popular. It wasn't that it wasn't cool, it was just that it wasn't there. But I was able to raise my daughter in a community where the language, the traditions, they were all kind of cool. West Mabou Dance on Saturday night was where the cool kids hung out. And I see the kids, I just see more confident kids as a result of that. So I think that having that community and having the ability to bring your children into it, that's why it's important to me.
I think it was you that would often say it takes a village, right?
Yep.
Yes. I fully agree, and Siobhan, Casey's daughter, is a wonderful young Gael, a perfect exponent of our village. So thank you so much, Casey, for gracing us here tonight. We so appreciate it, and of course your beautiful prose. Stick around, we might get to hear from Casey a little bit later on, but we'll let you relax into the next phase. So thank you once again, Tathaleave. Casey, we will roll right into our second breakout room, and so we'll have someone pop those questions coming up into the chat. There it is. So we're asking you in your group, which we have a little bit more time with, so you can of course introduce yourself again, say where you're calling from if you're in with other folk, but what stood out to you from this conversation that you just heard? What moved you? Take us to a moment where you witnessed or felt the support of a community. And I'll also add in, let us know I guess maybe we'll save it for the harvest. Maybe if there's something that you're moved to do, we want to hear about it too. So we'll send you off if our breakout rooms are somewhat ready. I should check on that first. How we doing on our rooms? And there we go. I'm going to put on a little music track, and we'll put our do we put those questions in? I'll tell you what we're looking for. From our discussions tonight, breakout rooms, or from our guests, what surprised you from what you heard? Perhaps surprised what you heard or said. What themes did you hear, and was something sparked in you? So feel free to pop that into the chat, and we'll share them as we go. So let's see if we can put on a little music.
Yes.
It's all right, I'll read them out as they come in, but feel free to keep going. If I miss it, keep going. Community is a warm blanket on a cold night. Isn't that true? What stood out for me when the presenters was a striking image of the tartan blankets coming off the walls and wrapping around the green. I have felt the support of a Gaelic community while singing Gaelic songs, whether alone or in a choir. Beautiful, Lois. Thought the metaphor of languages, the work was fantastic. Sheila? The recurring theme is the languages. It's encouraging to hear from KC that in some ways, some aspects of Gaelic life have become normalized, especially for the youth, like the losses of the elders. Surprised yet again by my longing for community and thankfulness for what we do have in Gaelic music. Thanks, Jane. I also liked Adam's suggestion of infiltration and doing that without conscious effort. I will start, as an outsider myself, the concept of accepting newcomers where they are, helping them, us, along the way. I have experienced this firsthand as a proficient and Gaelic language learner and teacher, and it truly makes me feel part of it. Certainly brought back lovely memories, moments of being in community with Breton, and made me reflect on what about those experiences. It's a whole bunch. The language is at the heart and the core of the community. Feel that learning, relearning a few Gaelic songs would be my venture of interest. Sorry, I might be a little quiet on this end. I'll read just a couple more and then we'll move on. I did relate to Adam's delight in the sharing of songs and common appreciation of tradition, and embodying it with a group as a peak experience and reinforcement of motivation and meaning. Beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful. Keep them coming in. We take harvest of the harvest every week, and that's available on the website, howwethrivedout.org, along with a beautiful summary of what we heard and the video of the interview parts shared. So keep an eye out for that, and our past sessions are there as well. So we appreciate your participation in that. The music there, of course, if you're a fan like myself of the music, that was Tracy Ayres McNeil playing for us there. So I'm going to bring back KC. She's up for giving us a little song to end off the night. Seems like a good fitting way to end the Ceilidh. Oh, you might be on mute there, Casey.
There we go. Okay. So I spoke about Maureen McKenzie before, and this was a song that she taught us, and it's one that I just love to sing. It's a lullaby. It's one I actually sang to my daughter, and I have a memory of singing it at Kaylee one night, and my daughter got up from her chair and crawled up in my lap as I was singing it. So here we go. Nambulum hinu alainu. Nambulum hinu alainu. Nambulum hinu yanando britau. Is nambulum hinu alainu. Alainu skandalainu. Alainu skandalainu. Jenkatu molana smogu lakiana. Achakut mohria skandalainu. Unak mishakat mantakas manje. Dunya morvan jakash kintatrin. Dewa wasle ayat miskia islegaya. Smor meko ganta kedova peri. Alainu skandalainu. Alainu skandalainu. Jenkatu norana smogu lakiana. Achakut mohria skandalainu. Alainu skandalainu. Jeanette?
Beautiful. Thank you, Casey. You've contributed so much tonight. Thank you for putting your voice in there as well. Well, that's going to do it, I think, for tonight. We're just about there, and looking forward to gathering again next Friday, so we hope that you'll come back. But for now, Danach leave.
Marcia leave.
Martian leave.
Thank you, Valerie.
Thank you, Valerie.
Thank you, Valerie.
Thank you, Valerie. Hís an sibh na heachgan.
Magrification.
Thank you all.